moving things around the best that they can and still operate. So 3 people councillors zooming in tonight, Councillor Romano, Councillor Munro and Councillor McRae. You can still... I'm not sure.
This is the New South Wales State Audit Office.
And sorry, I can't see it from the South Wales Audit Office. Under the regs at the moment, you can still Zoom until the 27th of March. So I'd just like to inform all councillors, holidays, or if you wish not to attend a council meeting, we'll be sending out a memo in the next few weeks. I think we've either got to think about it one way or the other way. I don't think it's fair on anybody when we have a bit of a mix match in what we're actually doing.
Comment that I've been inundated with.
Councillor Duffy, microphone. We can't.
Is that better? Yeah, Mr. Mayor, what a lot of people are complaining about is that they can't see the chamber very well, but they can see the people on Zoom, and I just wonder whether we can do something about that, because I mean most of us are here in the chamber, and people are wanting to see a little bit more of what's actually happening in the chamber instead of the 3 or 4 faces that are on the Zoom.
I'm not sure.
I think they're very lucky if that's the case, Councillor Duffy.
Councillor Munro, keep your comments.
Operation because of it, Councillor Munro.
Mr. Mayor, sorry, can I just ask a question, please? So you're talking about we have to decide whether we're going to go back to chamber meetings or...
I'm going to send out a memo in the next few days, and I'm going to put out and see what councillors want to do.
But will we have the option, if we are away, to be able to Zoom in?
Yes.
I think that's it's imperative. If you're away, genuinely away, and you can't get here, I think you should be able to Zoom in.
Can I also suggest that actually at the moment I'm unwell. You'll see me with a box of tissues from time to time. So is it also if you're unwell but able to still attend, or do you want to scratch that off as well? Do you have to actually be outside Orange?
I don't know. I'll be getting a ruling on that because I'm not too well myself.
You have to get a doctor's certificate.
Yeah. Under the regulations, if you were ill, you had to put in a leave form. So I have to find out whether we do or we don't have to. That's all. I'm just going to find out so everyone's quite clear on what you can do and what you can't do. Look, so I opened the council meeting of the 15th of December 2020, our last for 2020. But I would like to open the meeting by having a minute's silence for a former councillor and Mayor of Orange and a true son of Orange, Tim Sullivan. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. As soon as find out the arrangements, I'll get an email sent out to everyone, unless someone knows now.
I'm led to believe, Mr. Mayor, that Tim's private funeral service was conducted today.
Okay.
Very simple. I was told by former councillor Chris Grillis, who was a very close friend, he was able to attend at Tim's request or family's request.
Okay,
and,
look,
it was very fitting and very. fitted in with Tim's personality. He didn't want a lot of fanfare and so forth. So
I will make sure that we get something to Lorraine and the children tomorrow. If proves of that, is that okay? And I will go up and visit. Thank you.
Mr. Theakston, excuse me, Mr. Mayor, can you keep an eye on that smart board and before it logs out? Thank you.
Look, just remind this meeting is being live streamed and recorded. Please be patient. Electronic meetings are different to face and difficult. You'll be invited to speak by the meeting coordinator. Raise your hand. Please do not speak over others. I ask the Chief Executive Officer to read any apologies.
Mayor, there are none.
Councillors attending via Zoom.
Mr. Mayor, there are none. We have 3 councillors on Zoom.
Thank you. This council meeting is being live streamed and recorded. By speaking at the council meeting, you agree to be live streamed and recorded. Please ensure that if and when you speak at this council meeting that you ensure you're respectful to others and use appropriate language at all times. Orange City Council accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures made during the course of this council meeting. A recording will be made for administrative purposes. We have a prayer tonight from Mr. Brant Watterson from the Orange Lutheran Church. Brant there.
Beverly Rankin's here.
Thank you very, very much, Beverly. That's great.
No, Brant has a lot of family responsibilities, so. Loving God, we thank you for this beautiful city. We thank you for the life of Tim Sullivan and for all that he contributed to this city. We pray for tonight's meeting that you will grant us wisdom, grant us courage to make wise decisions, grant us compassion that we make decisions that care for others, and bless this city, we pray, that it may be a gift not only to the residents but to the rest of New South Wales and Australia and beyond. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you very much. I'd like to acknowledge the Wiradjuri people who are the traditional custodians of the land. I would also like to pay respect to the elders, both past and present, of the Wiradjuri Nation and extend that respect to other Aboriginal Australians who are present. Does any councillor wish to declare any conflicts of interest in any matter for consideration at the council meeting tonight?
Yes.
Councillor McRae.
In closed meeting, item 6.5, I have a significant pecuniary interest as one parcel of land on the list adjoins property I currently own. I'll be leaving that part of the meeting.
Councillor McRae, any others? Nope. Look, now close the meeting, or part of the meeting, for the open forum, and we have 3 speakers this evening. But in just saying that, one of the items for tonight's council meeting, 5.6, if you look to your agendas on item 5.6, which is Development Application DA 284/2020 in brackets 1-4 Carneys Drive. My Senate, that has been withdrawn for this evening. Now, our first speaker tonight is Glenn McPhee, 24-1 DA Avenue, Mosman. He's a spokesperson for the neighbours of 4 Carneys Drive. Thank you very much, Mr. McPhee. The second speaker is Mary Ann Sladdick, 196 March Street.
Not here, Miss Constantine?
Yeah. We have Beverly Rankin. Thanks, Beverly.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and councillors. I'm here at Councillor Munro's request to speak regarding the Hot Meals Outreach Project, which is currently being run from the Orange Uniting Church. on Saturday nights between 5 and 6 p.m. And we have applied for a small donations grant, which you will have already seen, and we've attached the budget for that. This project began in May, on the 2nd of May, and we delivered or gave out 4 hot meals that night. Last week, I think it was 140. It has grown that much in that period of time. We initially planned to run just for the winter months because we were aware that under COVID a lot of services had shut down. However, the need has continued to grow despite winter being over. And I think you will be assured 130 or so hot meals, takeaway hot meals every Saturday night in this town is a significant indicator of the social needs of this city. I have put together a couple of stories, very brief stories, and then I'm happy to just take questions. There is one gentleman who comes. He explained to our worker that he had been sober for the last 8 months because he'd done 88 days in rehab. He's been sober for 8 months, and coming for a hot meal gives him a meal, but it's someone to chat to and encourage him in his journey. There's another gentleman who comes and every week picks up 16 or 17 meals, not for himself, but he delivers them to a number of neighbours, single parents and other people in his area. Another young lady who admittedly admits she struggles with drug addiction comes because she finds it hard to make ends meet. Another gentleman came because his brother was killed on a bike accident a few weeks earlier. He was unable to cope and just needed a hot meal. Another person I know on a disability support pension this week said to me that $8 for a few sausages was more than he could afford on his budget this week because of other extraneous circumstances. So these are just some of the stories. Not everybody who comes every week. Some people come for a short period of time, a few weeks, and then they're set up and they go again. So it's a significant contribution. We have over 20 regular volunteers who help. On top of that, there's probably another 15 people who bake biscuits or muffins and sweet cakes, and there have been lots of very generous supports from local businesses, from Newcrest Mining, Cadia Valley Operations, and from lots of little old ladies and little old men literally who will come in with $50 or in some cases more than that in cash donations on a regular basis. So that's basically what it's about. So I'm happy to answer any questions, or try to anyway.
Any questions from any council?
The providers from what he did tell me though is that backpackers who local people, is that something that you're seeing with backpackers or coming in and?
Not that I'm aware of. I don't think you might get the odd transient person, but we haven't seen anybody who really does come and abuse the service. It's inevitable at one level that there will be some people who will take advantage of any goodwill, but I would say by and large the people who come to our service really appreciate what we do, and for whatever reason they're unable to do that. So yeah.
As a community, does appreciate.
Thanks very much, Beverly, and may I, on behalf of the council, wish you a Merry Christmas and a joyful New Year, and hope all goes well for you.
Thank you.
It's not directly with your service, but it's a matter arising in the same ilk. As we all know here, we established a wood bank in Orange through the winter months, and it was. I'm wondering whether we could get a report back on what the take up of the wood bank was. I know the year on the take up, and that we've got plenty of time and preparation for next. So that just reminded me of the great work that's being done there with the. We're involved with the Wood Bank very heavily, so I'd like to.
Yeah. Interesting comment that was asked of Beverly there. My wife works in a voluntary capacity with the food, groceries behind here, and interesting enough, they're certainly looking at a few people now who are making a bit of hoggers of themselves in coming there to get groceries and so forth when there are, in fact, people that quite needy people that need it. Councillor Nugent.
Yes, thanks, Mr Mayor. I just wanted to mention that Marianne Slater case.
I know that.
Oh, sorry. I wasn't sure whether you were aware or not, so that's why I was mentioning it.
Next speaker is Marianne Slater. Right, thanks.
Just obviously 194A March Street.
Marianne, you'll have to get closer to the microphone.
Sorry. First of all, thank you especially to Council and Kelly Walker for her for professionalism and work with the DA. We're sad that it's another two-storey development, obviously, because we were obviously hoping it would be a single-storey development. And look, we're not opposed to development, so we'll make that very clear. It was just that we're opposed to the two-storey development. It is pleasing to see that there was some sensitivity towards the heritage area and adjoining residents by reducing the dwellings from 7 to 5. So we were very grateful for that. Just a slightly different matter, considering the current adoption of the Heritage Study Review, which to my understanding was passed on the 1st of December 2020. We thought any future planning needs to consider the preservation and heritage of this East Orange area, historically the Orange town. The delay of more than 2 years by the Council in the expansion of the heritage conservation area, specifically Newman Park in this case, is most disappointing with us, with the expansion possibly avoiding costly and distressing process for both residents and the developers, especially since the original one was passed in 2012. It sort of sat idle till to the 2018 until we alerted it to the Council. Look, I would like to think that it's a perfect opportunity for Council to commit to the heritage conservation guidelines and tourism campaigns that Orange is based on, our promotion is based on. But yes, I would like to just say those points and to say thank you for Council for their diligence and professionalism again.
Thanks, Marianne. Council meeting will now resume. We have late item 6.7. Agenda item, it's a Jiralang diversity credit. There are no mayoral minutes. Move to item 3, which is confirmation of the minutes of the previous meeting.
Good to move, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Nugent, second Councillor Munro. All in favour? And now we will have the presentation of the annual audit accounts from the Audit Office. Mr. Chris Harper, who is on the Zoom screen there.
Good evening. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councillors and staff. Hopefully you can all hear me okay?
Yep.
Great. So thank you for the invitation to present my report tonight on the conduct of the audit of Orange City Council. By way of introduction, my name is Chris Harper. I'm a Director in Financial Audit at the Audit Office of New South Wales. So this year, as you all know, we've been living in unprecedented times with COVID-19. Council's managed to maintain delivery of their essential services during this period through the hard work of Council and Council staff to manage those risks. As well as the global pandemic, obviously the Council's had to respond to the challenges associated with the region's drought conditions in 1920.
Yeah, it's very.
I'm sorry, I can't do anything about that.
Very wobbly.
Okay, I'll try and speak up if that.
Just try if you can move closer to your microphone. I can't understand. Try again.
It's more to do with your internet connectivity. It's got nothing to do with your Audible. It's jitter in your internet.
Yeah, it's been cutting in and out during the rest of the talk. I'm not sure if the councillors on Zoom are having the same issue as well.
Yeah, a little bit. It's all right.
All right.
Okay, I'll keep going and let me know if it's too bad to hear. So yeah, given those unprecedented times, OLG did extend the statutory date for financial statements this year. So they delayed the deadline by 1 month until the end of November. I'm pleased to say that Council met this revised timetable. In delivering the mandate for local government, the Audit Office's role is to provide independent assurance on the financial statements, supporting schedules, which has been prepared by management and then Council. We report our findings to management, Council, and then through to Parliament ultimately. In our 2020 local government report to Parliament, we're going to continue to focus on the results from the 1920 financial audits, and we expect to table this report at the end of February next year. The key findings that come from these 2020 audits and general themes and observations will be incorporated into this. Your background information is there, as we did focus on during this year's audits across the sector, included impacts of COVID-19. This is looking at both the financial impacts, also the impacts to governance and controls. Natural disasters, looking at whether the council was impacted by natural disasters and whether they had insurance in place and received additional funding. Accounting for landfills, so looking at the provisions to remediate these particular sites. And as always, we continue to look at information technology, general controls. So now I'm going to turn to the report on conduct of the audit of Orange City Council. Council, as I understand, you've got a copy of the annual report as part of the business papers. So I'm going to be turning to report on conduct, which is on page 89 of the general purpose financial statements. As I said, we've completed our audit of Council's general purpose and special purpose financial statements and relevant special schedules. I'm pleased to report that on 30th of November 2020, we issued a clean audit opinion on your Council statements for the year ending 30 June 2020. This means the financial statements contain no material misstatements and present fairly. The Office of the Local Government's Code sets out what needs to be covered by the report on the conduct. There are 6 key performance measures, which are included in note 27A, page 84, of the general purpose financial statements. I'm very pleased to say that Council has met the OLG industry benchmarks for all 6 of the financial statement performance measures in 2020. I'll just take you briefly through some of the highlights of the report on conduct. So firstly, looking at the income statement, the Council's operating result from continuing operations, 31.9 million, including depreciation and amortisation, was 0.6 million lower than the previous year. Increased expenditure was largely offset by increased revenues. The net operating result before capital grants and contributions of 8 million was around 5.4 million lower than the previous year. Some of the key movements driving that change was a 2.1 million increase in raw materials and contract expenditure, offset by a reduction in user charges of 2.9 million. Next, turning to rates and annual charges revenues, so 41.6 million. This increased by just over 2 million, so around 5% from prior year, due to the rate peg increase allowed by IPART, and also an increase in the number of overall assessments. As I said, there were 6 performance measures, and I'm now just going to have a look at the first one, which is the operating performance ratio. So Council delivered 7.47%, which again is above the industry benchmark of 0%. There was a slight decrease due from prior year, which was driven down to a reduction of just under 3 million in user charges and fees due to COVID-19 restrictions, and a 1 million lower interest and investments revenue due to reduced interest rates. The NSOurce operating revenue ratio looks at the degree to which Council relies on external funding sources, such as operating grants and contributions. Council's ratio was just under 70%, which exceeded the benchmark of 60% set by OLG. Next, looking at cash and investments. So Council's cash position at 30 June 2020 was 183.9 million, which was an increase of 20 million from prior year. This was predominantly driven by an increase of around 8.5 million in additional borrowings and increase in cash received council's operating activity. Next ratio is the unrestricted current. So again, council exceeded the benchmark of 1.5. So this means council can meet their short-term obligations as they fall due. Cash expense cover ratio, 21.39 months. So this really indicates the number of months which council can continue paying for its immediate expenses without receiving additional cash inflows. This is well in excess of the 3-month industry benchmark. As I mentioned earlier, the increased investments was really driving this change in the ratio. The debt service cover ratio measures the operating cash to service debt. The ratio was 6.59, which exceeded the benchmark of greater than 2. So just turning to the last of the 6 performance ratios, this is the rates and annual charges outstanding percentage. So this is looking at the impact of both uncollected rates and annual charges on council's liquidity and the adequacy of debt recovery efforts. For regional rural councils, the benchmark is less than 10%. Place to say council achieved 6.9%. Lastly, we've made some comments around asset renewals. So in 2019-20, asset renewals were 874,000, reduction from 1.1 a year. During the year ending 30 June 2020, just under 41 million was spent on new assets rather, including 2.8 million of roads infrastructure and 26.9 million of various capital works. Overall, council's reported a strong set of financial results, and as I said at the outset, has met all of the 6 audited financial performance measures during these unprecedented times. So I'd like to thank council staff for their cooperation with my team in the conduct of the audit. That closes my presentation. So thank you, Mayor and councillors. I'm very happy to take any questions.
Thanks very much, Chris. And can I just thank you on behalf of the risk and audit team of council, of independents. And there we have an independent chairman, another independent member, Councillor Whitten, and myself, as councillors, and of course then we have our CEO, Mr. Jason Cook, and his team. But can I say, Mr. Harper, I like the way that these are set out, the ratios, because quite obviously when you look at those ratios, and I'm quite sure you've the bodies that we answer to, this is where they go straight to and have a look at the operating performance ratio, the own source operating. They're quite clear that we're operating quite well, so I'd like to thank you for that. Now, any questions from councillors, please? Very, very good. That you've got all the document there. There will be a test at the first council meeting back in January next year. It'll be multiple choice. Thanks very much, Chris. You don't have to hang in there. And just one further question. Suspect that there'll be any new accounting methodologies thrust upon us in the coming 12 months? Because, you know, accounting standards seem to change every 3 or 4 years for whatever reason.
Yeah, great question. It's been 1920 was a big year of new accounting standards, so around revenue and leasing predominantly, which did result in quite a bit of additional work for council in preparing their financial statements and also my team in auditing them. I'm pleased to say, looking forward to 2021, there's no major new changes coming through, so we can all take a bit of that.
The numbers don't change, Mr. Mayor, just the way they presented.
Just the way they present, yeah. Well, look, thanks, Chris. And look, I'll just emphasise that again, Shambria and the whole team, Jason Cook and all the team, it puts a fluster through everybody when you get new accounting standards and trying to find somewhere there's no precedent. So you're sort of flying by the seat of your pants, but they've done an excellent job, and our chairman assured me all the way through that they were doing that. So if you could pass that on, Mr. CEO.
Thank you.
All those staff, thank you very much. We move down to item 4, which is notices of motion, notices of rescission. First one is 4.1, notice of motion, Aquatic Centre Admission Fee Australia Day.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm quite happy to speak about it if someone wishes to second it.
I'll second it, Mr. Mayor.
I'll second it.
So you're moving it.
Yep. Mr. Mayor, look, this is nothing new. We had it last year, and that's what makes me. find it a bit strange that we have a comment there that it's an estimated $5,075 for the day. I mean, that's what we had there last year, so why didn't we allow for it to happen this year? Because it's been an ongoing thing, but that's okay. Look, the reason why we've had a very tough year. We've had COVID, we've had drought, we've had water restrictions, we've had no real Christmas carols that we're having this year unless someone's organising themselves in their organisation. And so I think it's a way. We've also had, we've had rate increases which we've never given any leniency to at all. So I think this is one way that we can give our ratepayers and residents, especially the young, an opportunity to go on Australia Day and celebrate. Probably, I regard Australia Day as every day, but this is the day that we've selected, and I think it's a good opportunity. And so I hope we do look forward to the accounting process to happen next year to allow for it.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I support this 100%, but I sort of think last year's motion was to have it for that year, so it can't be an ongoing thing unless you make it an ongoing thing. So I don't know how it can be an ongoing thing if it's not being put up as an ongoing thing. I'm quite happy to support it. I think it's a good idea to get people down to use our aquatic centre, even though it's being used fairly heavily at the moment. And we're going to have the blow-up jigabys on the pool, hopefully, and yeah, get down and enjoy Australia Day down there.
Yeah. Okay, look, I think I'll put the motion. All in favour? Yes, thank you very much, councillors. We move to item 4.2, which is notice motion bulky waste drop-off service.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. I believe Councillor Marlow says.
No, I've got to move. I need a seconder.
I'll second it.
Councillor Rana.
Yep, this is only what the motion doesn't do is allow for this weekend coming, which is this weekend coming. That's what the intent of the motion is, that we get a lot of people doing a clean out before Christmas. As you say, as I said a minute ago, we've had a very tough year, and a lot of people couldn't go anywhere with their bulk waste and all those type of things. They're doing clean outs now that where people are starting to move around and all those type of things there. So I think it's a great opportunity again to show a bit of faith in our residents and ratepayers for putting up with for a tough year again. And I think it's something we spoke about in the chamber, where we tried to get a second collection, which will be highly on the agenda for next year's budget, I would imagine. And I just let Councillor, I'm just requesting that you support this, because there are probably a lot of people who probably can't make use of it, but they may have a friend that has a ute or a trailer that can help them out. And I know I've received many a phone call as regards to, hey, why weren't we having a second collection? The comment from the staff, and I understand the sentiment, the cost of such will be borne by the waste reserves, meaning the services may have an impact on the service delivery in the future. Well, as I said before, we increased the rates with no reduction in any of the levies, so we went to the maximum. So that's it.
Councillor Duffy, Councillor Miletto.
I'm not sure. First of all, I understand the spirit. Notice of motion, point of time, for a number of reasons. Basically, as has been pointed out, that these fees have been levied and the cost of such service will be borne. There's meaning that service will have to impact on the service delivery in the future. I guess from my point of view, what I'd like to know is, I need more information in statistical data regarding what this is going to cost council overall. That doesn't appear in here anywhere. So obviously, if that does occur, there's going to someone else is going to have to take a hit down the track. So I'm not against the motion. I am against at this point in time because I would like more information as to how that's going to look. And I don't believe this has been factored into the budget. I may be wrong. And, with regards to the comment, if that we were with the highest peg, I'm not quite sure whether that's true, whether accurate or not. Certainly, I require more information as to what this is going to cost, how it can be offset when it's not included in this year's budget.
Thanks, Councillor Miletto.
I'll just make a clarification.
Councillor Whitten, and you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I rise to support the motion. I I rise to support the motion. And all due credit to the staff. They have to protect and advise us on the fiduciary costs of council for foregoing such things. But our role as councillors, and for us old councillors, we've done this many, many times before. And certainly there will be an impact to the bottom line, but those costs are already factored in because we will still open the waste facility, we will still pay wages, all those costs will still be incurred. But what we're deciding to do, like we've done many times before, is give something back to the community, something that they already pay for. So I don't see a problem with this. And staff, yes, they have to play the brinkmanship of advising us of this cost. Now, to say in here that it is going to affect the point where next year we're going to have to raise rates again, money, that will come back to us and that will be a decision for council because staff don't get a vote. They'll put it in the budget. They'll advise us that they need these things, but it'll be our choice. And we may choose during the course of the year, the budget year, support other things, pay for this. And it's been done many times before and it will always happen again. So look, I'm going to support this. It's been a tough year for everyone. We don't have to keep repeating that. And we're giving back something for Christmas. Back to the community.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor McRae was next.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I think I'm speaking against the motion, but my concerns is in relation to the time frame. And I understand there was no time frame in the information I was provided. So the suggestion that it's this weekend, my concerns in that quick time frame are that are we ready for the staffing of it? Now, I am a regular user of the recovery centre. I probably have done about 20 trips, I'd say, in the last 3 months of ute loads, unloaded myself. And it's a mix often of recyclable materials or dropping off to the recovery centre, to the wonderful shop there. But sometimes it's also paying for waste to be unloaded. And I guess my concerns are for the safety of if we have an influx, if we have the open slather free days, how we can manage that with queues on the weighbridge. Often there can be times, peak times, Saturday mornings, Saturday afternoons, queues on the weighbridge, and it can at times be queued out onto the main road. So I'm just wondering about how that might be managed with such a short time frame. Also wondering about the changeover of the bins. They can fill up very quickly when you've got a large number of people unloading, and obviously there's time frame issues and staffing for that. And of course, often the big weekends when people are clearing out and the recovery centre's got a lot of new items coming in, there's also a lot of people who go out there for the great bargains and the recovery of something that's going to be their new item. So I guess I have concerns about how quickly the staff at the recovery centre would be able to respond if indeed it's intended to be this weekend. It's effectively, I guess, 3 days notice. I'd be happy to support it if perhaps it was after Christmas where there's a bit more lead time, and often people are taking things out after they've had new things given to them for Christmas, and it's the packaging and the materials, the big cardboard boxes that don't fit into the collected waste bins for the community usual collections that could be a problem. So I'd offer that suggestion, but I also wonder where it fits with things like asbestos waste and dangerous chemicals, which usually are collected separately. Would we anticipate that they would also be collected for free over the coming weekend, or are there other arrangements? So I guess it's a pretty unsexy topic, but what are the logistics of actually making this happen? And as a regular user, I'd be interested in to see how that happens. And if it's one ute, a ute or trailer load per person, how's that managed? Is it per registration? I borrow my dad's ute, so does that mean no one else can, or is it showing a driver's license or a rates notice? Because I do have the concern that there may be people who might be tempted to overdo it and see this as a way to get rid of perhaps industrial or commercial or business waste in an inappropriate manner and take advantage of what is intended to be a great service to people in Orange who are trying to do the right thing and manage waste appropriately. So I'm not sure that I've got enough detail to make an informed decision about what it might cost in terms of the safety of those users, the safety of the staff, and the potential cost impacts.
Thanks, Councillor McRae. Councillor Duffy, you wanted to answer?
So I just want to clarify, as I said at the start of the thing, this weekend, 19th and 20th of December.
You propose to have it?
Motion.
I'm not going to have many. It's going to be 5 to 10 mil all weekend.
Councillor Taylor?
Councillor
Taylor.
I'll speak for the motion, but I have concerns about the timing. I just don't think this weekend is time enough lead up. I think that if we're going to do something like this, we should stage it over a couple of weekends or whatever it may be, and give the community time to.
Perhaps you move an amendment.
I will move an amendment that it's.
I'll second it.
That we do it. The
amendment seconded by Councillor Romano.
Correct.
Weekend over weekends to be determined, and we could get that out through the media unit, and I think that would be certainly a better way of going about it too, because you'd inform the community, and we can use the media to get it out there, and people can prepare. These things they need to prepare for too. If they've got bulky items, there might be things they need to get out from the back of the shed or whatever it may be. And I do agree with Councillor McRae to the extent that it could cause problems if we try and do it this weekend. People will panic to try and get it done before Christmas or do it while they've got the chance, and it could lead to problems out there, logistical problems. So, yes, fully support the motion, but not the timing. And I think common sense should prevail. Just forget about this weekend and do it after Christmas. And I think most people won't be too perturbed by that. I know most people would probably have a lot going on this weekend, and they would probably prefer times, even if it's in January, late January, when people have had time to absorb it and give themselves time and the family time to organise themselves.
So Councillor Munro, and then Councillor Turner, and then Councillor Romano.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I agree with the idea of the motion as well, but I wonder if we could ask staff, and if the motion's moved, I'd agree with it wholeheartedly, but going forward next year, I wonder if we could get a report from staff on how we could maybe have a token or something sent out with rate notices, or some way to give a fair go to the ratepayer as far as once a year taking a bulk load up to the tip free over a longer period of time.
Councillor Munro, look, the motion is for this one over the Christmas period. That's a completely different item. So please, can you just contain your discussion to this motion?
So I agree with the motion. Fair enough. Give them a fair go with coming up to Christmas, and maybe one in January as well. I don't mind if I extend it a little, but I wonder if going forward that we can have a conversation with staff, and I will, in regards to giving people a fair go over the full year next year, one load of rubbish. So I'll foreshadow a motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Turner.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Then Councillor Romano.
I'll support the amendment. I can support the motion because it was amendment I can support, but it still needs a little tightening up. It's like, for instance, a 6x4 trailer. So regular visitor out to the tip, about a 10 trailers would be. It's not then fair to the staff of Bangor Bridge, got to determine this weekend is too early because a lot of the staff out there are J.R. Richards staff who have already been rostered on for this weekend. Obviously would need, he said, for instance, Bangarang staff would the recycling centre. So I will support it sometime into the new ISO that Bangarang and some firmer indication of what is a tabletop. A bogey actual gun. What is a tabletop? We run the risk also, if we give enough notice, all the builders keep their bulky waste. They will deliver it all in their utes and their tabletops and their every other form. Their trailers of all various sizes. So I don't know how you're going to police. But the intention is good. How it's going to be policed by and our staff that are there also, I don't know. The amendment and hope all that.
Councillor Romano.
Yes. Look, it's a good idea. I think it's all being said. Most of it's being said, but I've got some concern about what Councillor Turner has said about the builders. What I think we should include in the statement is that it's got to be household goods. We're not promoting that builders bring bricks and blocks and concrete slabs. The other comment by Councillor McRae was to do with asbestos. I don't think that's going to happen, but the guy in charge or the woman in charge of the weighbridge, they usually ask you what's in the trailer or what's in the back of the ute, and they have a look. They don't just take your word for it. So my view would be to have a bit of trust in the people that are going to take their household goods only, not commercial rubbish. And the other point was that it is too early this weekend, so I support the amendment to probably do it between Christmas and New Year or early January. But we've got to bear in mind too that in February we've been told, if I'm not wrong, that the bulky waste pickup will be implemented. So people know that as well. This is just a supplement, in my view. If people want to clean their garages out, or they've got excess rubbish in the house, use common sense. Have a common sense approach. Do not bring your rubbish from a building site because it'll get knocked back. We need to cover all that. I do agree with some of the councillors' comments on that. I think it could be abused. So maybe we should be a little bit clearer when we advertise it. We advertise that it's not for builders, it's for household goods only.
Councillor Nugent was next.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, as many other speakers have said, I understand the intention of it, but I do share a lot of the concerns that have been expressed in terms of the logistics of it, of making it happen. Some of the comments from Councillor McRae, and I suppose I've got two questions. One is, how do we determine, or how do we limit it to one? It sounds like it's meant to be one ute load per household or per individual or per ratepayer. I don't understand how we're going to expect the people on the weighbridge to police that. And the second thing, I guess, has been raised by Councillor Romano in terms of the bulky waste pickup and what the date of that is actually going to be. And I don't see a lot of point in putting it too close date of the bulky waste pickup.
You want a point of clarification? I'm speaking next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a point of clarification on what constitutes a bulky good. I guess part of my concern is a clear definition as to what that implies, an opportunity for people to be cutting old vehicles or engines and taking them out there and dumping them and stuff like that, which only have to go around town and we see these rusty old cars in yards and things like that. That's going to be an opportunity for people to get rid of stuff like that. It's doesn't clearly
household goods.
And I'll support the amendment. And in saying that, a lot of the discussions been about operational matters and how it actually works. I'm quite confident with our staff. We'll look at the operational side of things and determining. And I think part of in how we put it out there to the public via the media on what we will accept and what we won't accept, we can make that quite clear within that. I think if we emphasise that this is to support people, and we do get unfortunately, lots of different packaging over the Christmas period, Everyone seems to wrap up gifts and comes in boxes and all bits and pieces, and I can tell you there wouldn't be a garbage can if it went down any street. It wouldn't be full of boxes and tinsel and a whole range of things. But I think if our staff make it quite clear when we put out media on actually what it's meant to be, then I think secondly, at the depot, certainly the staff there, they can be told what can be accepted and what can't be accepted. And then thirdly, we've had these previously, and I can't recall ever the staff coming back and saying there were huge lineups of utes and trailers and couldn't get in and you couldn't get out and so forth. So I think all those things, it does actually work. And so I support the amendment. I'd support the amendment for, late December, early January, those weekends.
Yeah. I'd just ask a question, Mr. Mayor. So whenabouts in February is the bulky waste pickup?
Why don't I get Mr. Greenham to start answering some of these questions?
Yeah, certainly. The bulky waste pickup in February will be run over the full month, but it'll be specific areas in each week. So it'll be split up that way, and that the advertising is going out for that as well.
Right, I'm going to put the motion now. I think we're going in circles a bit. I'll put the amendment.
Mr. Mayor, if you're quite happy, I'm happy to withdraw the motion and support the amendment. I can't see much sense in going that pathway. I'm a very big critic of the staff at all the times, but I don't think that. I think the staff have every capable of handling what we're trying to do. But I'm happy to withdraw the motion.
The amendment is now the motion. All in favour? All in favour? Against? Against we have Councillor Mileto and Councillor Nugent. Rest of 4. Thank you very much for that. We move into 5, which are general reports. First of all is 5.1, which are recommendation resolutions from policy committees. Second that, Councillor Hamling. Seconded, Councillor Turner. All in favour? Question?
Yeah, and I've got a question. I know at the last council meeting we had a huge discussion on ancestry trees. I've looked at the minutes of the policy committees and I've looked at the minutes of the thing, and I don't see any mention of that in this thing. As I said at the forum we had here, I said I'm quite happy to, and I was expecting a resolution to come here to say, hey, we want those trees to stay, and I'm quite happy to move that way now and say happy that we leave all trees between Summer Street and Kite Street in Anson Street.
You can come to council with a motion, but you can't move a motion tonight. I just didn't accept it. I just didn't accept it.
No harm in.
You can try, but you can't.
The old days.
I'll ask the CEO to answer that question.
Let me just say, I attended that forum and staff attended that forum, and we got a very, very strong message that the community does not want to see those trees removed. So I've said to the staff, let's go back to the drawing board. Mr. Greenham and I had a good chat, and what we're going to do is spend some serious time on looking for solutions that involve not removing the trees, and one day we will bring that back to you. Of course, as we explained, there will be cost implications, but that's part of the decision. So we'll take, to be honest, I think we'll take certainly to February to actually do the technical work to try to find.
So look, can I just say in that, I think it's important here. I've loved the banter and watching the media on this. It just assumed that it was going to happen. It's a great way. In one part, people want forums. Council put things out there for the community to have their input, and this is a good example of exactly what happened. And the feedback has been listened to. I was never questioned by any individual whether I believed in them staying or them not going, but at least I had the courtesy to come along to those first 2 forums and have a good look at it and make the decisions. And I think that's healthy debate and a democratic process for making a decision. Now, and I do want to support the staff in that. The staff put it up as an idea. It was not being put up as this is a fait accompli. Quite clear. Councillor, I think it was Councillor Taylor, sorry.
Yeah, I'm afraid I'll differ on that because we received an email and there was a press release. Say that the answer.
Oh, well, that's interesting. I didn't get it.
quoted. We're quoted in it, Mr Mayor, I'm afraid.
Well, you should never believe everything you read in the paper, Councillor Taylor.
Council email.
No,
We received a press release.
you know me better than that.
So I've got it. I've retained it. That's how I was actually originally alerted. I mentioned that here in the forum on the night.
I think all councillors were alerted well before that there would be a number of forums held on, and one of them, council circulated what was going to be discussed on the various forums.
That there was no mention of the removal of the trees in it. So, Mr Mayor, what I would like to see is, you've made a ruling on that, and it's probably legally a correct determination. We can't move from the floor here tonight. But what I am going to do, Mr Mayor, is going to foreshadow that I will be at the first meeting of the council in 2021, move a motion that we develop a very succinct policy on those trees that are in our streets surrounding the CBD, i.e. Kite Street, Sampson Street, Bing Street, even McLaughlin Street, the streets that have those very old, beautiful trees, that I'd like to see council develop a succinct procedural policy on any attempts for removals on those, i.e. that we have independent assessments of the tree's health and things like that before any tree can be touched. And I think that's important. And the only reason, Mr Mayor, I'm saying that to you tonight is the amount of feedback I've had on, of course, this Anson Street issue has ignited a lot of, and appropriately, ignited a lot of concern in the community. The question has been put to me by many, many people to say, look, we're really worried because we've got those beautiful trees in Sampson Street, for instance, and they push up the gate.
Councillor Taylor, can I just put a halt to you haven't got a motion up. I agree with you putting a motion up, and I'll even second for you because I agree, but not debating it now.
Well,
so you are foreshadowing. You're foreshadowing that you're going to put a motion up, and I will support that totally. But we've got to get on with the council.
For all the other trees to put something succinct in place so that the public of this community can be assured those trees will not be removed
You're repeating yourself. I agree with you, and I will second the motion. Councillor Munro was next.
And I will dig up the press release that we had.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, at the end of the day, council staff have done their job. The public certainly have done their job. They've had their voice, and I don't think any of us really want to pull down the trees. Let's have a happy Christmas and get on with the meeting.
Thanks, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It's just a question to the CEO. Thank you for indicating that you're going to bring a report back to council and look at all the options. I guess my question is as part of those options, council will they approach the insurers and ask them if there are any future claims made against trips or falls, are they going to indemnify the council against those? Because my understanding is in the last 5 years there's been 19 complaints of people falling. So in my opinion, that would be a reasonable foreseeable that there's going to be another fall. So I guess there is no question that everybody wants to maintain those trees. But is the insurer going to indemnify the council from future claims if somebody was to fall, knowing that there's an opportunity there?
Councillor Miletto, look, I think that's a question that'll come back in the report, I'm quite sure. What we're doing now, you're either speaking for or against, we haven't got a motion. We haven't got a motion. There's going to be a motion. There's going to be a motion come back.
You can move. They just be cut out, Councillor Miletto, if you like.
I say that. What I'm asking.
Motion coming.
Part of the report. Logical question because
part of the report. Thank you. We will do
clarification, Mr Mayor.
And it better be a point of clarification, not a rattle.
Will the CEO's comments be in the minutes at the next meeting?
Sorry.
Will the CEO's comments be in the minutes of the next meeting?
The ones I just made, absolutely.
Yes. Thank you. That's it. And that said the trees were staying.
We move on to 5.2, which is a statement of investments.
Move the recommendation, Mr Mayor.
A couple of votes there.
Favour? Yeah. Second, Councillor Munro, all in favour? Hands, please.
Aye.
Item 5.3 is low interest loan, Orange Waratah Sports
Move
Club.
the recommendation.
Seconded.
Councillor Taylor, seconded.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor
Munro.
Nugent. All in favour?
Question. Sorry, I have a question.
Question?
Yeah,
Councillor-
sorry, I'm just unsure that item 2 in the recommendations is actually, I guess, good governance. I'm not sure how else to put it, but it says that provision of a low interest loan is subject to the review of the Orange Waratah Sports Club Limited published financial reports for the year ending 30th of June 2020, if satisfactory. Now, who's going to judge if it's satisfactory? Is there any point actually having that in there if we're about to approve the loan? We're either saying they're good for it or they're not. Otherwise, who's going to assess that, when and how, and does that just drag it out a little bit longer? So I'd like, I guess it's a question, I'd like clarification of that. And perhaps there's a foreshadowed amendment to eliminate that item if the answer.
Have a look at 6.
Um,
Number 6, you read that.
Councillor Munro, I'll chair the meeting. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Chair, I think Councillor McRae's asked a very good question. What we were going to do is get Mr. Cook, the CFO, to check the financial reports, but you're right, it's really a hold point in the process, isn't it? If you make this decision tonight without 2, will do so without the published financial reports for the year ending 30 June 2020 is how I read that. Mr. Redmond, do you have a comment on this? Something that is a definite step that then council could pull out of such a loan?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think the intention of number 2 is that we'd assess those documents, and if they were unsatisfactory, then we wouldn't proceed. But satisfactory, we would proceed.
Okay, so I think we just need to, with the indulgence of the mover, who was the mover?
Councillor Taylor.
Councillor Taylor was the mover.
The provision of a low interest is subject. The provision of a low interest loan is on the proviso.
Subject to number 2 being satisfactory.
Yeah, is subject to, not the review, is subject to the published financial reports being satisfactory. So we'll get our CFO to have a quick look. If something's not right, we'll come back to you.
Yeah.
So I'd like an amendment then, that it be that the provision of the low interest loan is subject to the submission of the Orange Waratah Sports Club published financials reports for the year ending 30 June 2020. If they don't give us them, then we don't give the loan, would be the response there. We're making a judgment otherwise with the information that we have on whether to loan it to them or not. And I think either council tonight says that we believe it's a good plan or we don't, but having it somebody else then be the final arbiter defeats the purpose of council as being the decision makers here.
Can I just ask a question then? I would have thought that the provision means that they have to give them to us. If they don't give them to us, they don't get the loan.
If they're going to be satisfactory, you've obviously got them.
Yes. There's another part that sort of can't, well, we're taking security out over their property.
That's exactly right.
Okay, look, we need, Councillor McRae is moving an amendment. Do we have a seconder?
No.
It lapses due to a seconder. Okay.
I'll just speak for the motion very quickly, Mr. Mayor. I mean, the Waratah Sports Club provide and we've had many dealings with the Waratah Sports Club over many years. They provide an exemplary facility out there, multi-purpose facilities, which is outlined in the reports. And they do, as was pointed out many years ago, I think in a staff report, they make provision in North Orange there of many facilities that council would have to otherwise provide. And they've been an exemplary citizen as far as corporate citizen of this city. And we've given loans to other organisations such as Country League, and we never put much scrutiny on them. And I was quite surprised when this was deferred the last meeting, because I really believe strongly that this is one club that we should be getting right behind and supporting wherever we can. And as Councillor Whitten has very clearly pointed out, we've taken security over this. So it's not just handing them over the cash with nothing to back it up. So I strongly support us doing this. And like I say, overall, the ratepayers of this city will be the benefactors.
Thanks, Councillor. If I may speak next, and Councillor Newton. Look, I support it totally too. If I look at the number of clubs over a long period of time that I've been on council, and Councillor Taylor, we have supported it. And I mean, we're lending the money, and for the money to be paid back, it's usually going to clubs that furnish thousands upon thousands of voluntary hours in all shapes and forms, provide sport, a whole range of things. And it's usually, and what I do find interesting too, at the end of the day, any of these clubs turn over for whatever reason, facilities return to the City of Orange. Yeah, and I can say that happens with Emus, Orange City Rugby Club, Waratahs, Wentworth Golf Club. Most of them goes back to the City of Orange. So you're not really losing anything. You're lending them money to extend their services, to support them at a low interest rate, and it's good for the whole community. So I support it totally. Eugene, I think it was next. Sorry.
Look, I'm very happy to support it as well. I agree with what Councillor Taylor had just said. And in terms of the report, it identifies those current users of the facility. So it's not just sporting groups; it's events, it's community events. There are a lot of sporting groups in there. Little Athletics, which does a fantastic job with young people, and junior soccer, senior soccer. But there's also the Dog Obedience, the Relay for Life, New Year's Eve, fireworks, if we are allowed to have those again at some stage. So it's not just sporting groups, it's a whole range of community events, and I'm very happy to support it. Understand Councillor McRae's concerns, but when I read part 2, to me it's pretty clear. We're going to get those financial reports. We'll check them. If we'd have had them, we would have been able to sort of tick that off before tonight. But we're approving this on the basis that those check out.
Yeah, Mr Mayor, very quickly, Councillor Taylor hit it on the head. They're providing sports facilities that we don't have to provide. So any hand that we can give them, which we have in the past, and they've asked for a loan, which they're going to pay back. The other thing too, that Waratahs have hosted a number of state championships with the field layout they've got, which brings millions of dollars into our community when those junior championships are on. So I can't see what the problem we're going to have. Let's just lend them the money. They're putting, as we said, they're going to have their assets up for collateral. So yeah, let's lend them the cash.
Just the only thing I want to add to exactly what Councillor Taylor and Councillor Hanley just said there is that you look at how the Waratahs actually happened. And it happened through a community group of people that were volunteers for year after year after year through soccer, cricket and all these other sports here. That's grown what it is today. And as I said, it's money well spent.
I think I'll put the motion. All in favour?
Yeah, I'd like to speak against.
Sorry?
I'd like to speak against the motion.
You'd like to speak against the motion? You certainly can.
Thank you. Look, my concern is in the governance. I agree with councillors that Waratahs should be supported. My concern is in the governance with the inclusion of part 2. It takes the decision out of council's hands. It's relying on a third party's assessment that the report on their finances is satisfactory. Now, considering COVID, considering the changes for club operations during what would effectively have been a successful part of their year with sporting competitions held in that last quarter, it would be a brave CFO who came up against what council has approved and what is run by a volunteer sports club to say that the books don't add up. So it's not right for me in terms of governance with the inclusion of number 2. That's my concern in terms of the approving and supporting, being able to support this motion. Everything else stacks up. Everything else is fantastic to be able to support this club like others have been supported with a low interest loan. But number 2 undermines what council is actually making in terms of a decision tonight. And that's where I'm unhappy with that in terms of governance.
If I can just make a comment, I have the utmost confidence in our CFO and our risk and audit committee, which is chaired by and has independent members on there. And I'm quite sure if it doesn't stack up, we'll know quick smart, but I've got no doubt in my mind whatsoever that it complies with all government rules.
Mayor,
in
question,
government's rules.
question,
The
Mr.
motion,
Mayor, for
Mr. Mayor.
clarification before we
Let me
vote.
speak, Councillor
Before we
Romano.
vote, I just want, Mr. Mayor, wouldn't it be determined by our financial staff, which would then report to our CEO, who would determine?
That's correct.
So yeah, it's our staff who will be determining whether it's satisfactory.
CFO, sorry, is Chief
Mr.
Finance
Mayor, just
Officer.
quickly, like,
Not a third party.
and due respect to Councillor McRae about the governance part, but if there's a Waratahs are putting to us, they're borrowing $100,000 and we're taking security over their entire assets. According to that line there, if I was on their board, I'd be more worried about number 3, the other way round, about their governance, right? But they probably know that, right? Because for $100,000, we're taking security out over all their assets, according to that line. What would be the value of Waratahs?
Okay, listen, I'm going to put the motion. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? All for Councillor McRae against. Thank you, councillors. 5.5 is City Presentation Management Practices and Service Agreement.
5.4, isn't it?
5.4, yeah.
I'm happy to move the recommendations. It says we acknowledge the report. I'm going to go through this over a fine-tooth comb. There's a couple of things there. I will say the fact that I have noticed around certain roads that there's been a fair bit of 4-foot high grass being chopped down the last few days, especially out around Giffen Grove. I mean, it's Councillor Turner, sorry, but I think that. But it's something that I want to go through over the break with a fine-tooth comb to have a more in-depth knowledge of what we actually require of the contract and those technical.
Okay. All in favour? Against? Thank you.
Just a matter of rising, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick bouquet. Council staff got onto the works down there on the corner of Gardner and Woodward Road pretty promptly, and it's been tidied right up. So thank.
Look, I just made mention, I was coming in Cargo Road late this afternoon. I'm not sure whether our staff did it or contractors or whoever did it, but if you get time, just go out and have a look at Cargo Road from Ploughman's Lane out on both sides of the road. I think it's one of the best tidy up I've ever seen on that road, and it looks fantastic. So whoever did it, it's on. Job well done.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. I feel like a jack in the box here tonight. But also, I was informed that by a former councillor actually that there are grants around from state government for tidying up rubbish and so forth on the sides of roads. Could we look into that?
Mr. Mayor, I can go even further. We won one. We got notification. Yeah.
Well done.
And we'll be doing litter pickup with Wangarang. EPA grant it was.
Good thought, Dick. That's a quick reaction.
Never had a problem solved as quick.
Item 5.5 is the development application DA 59/220 in brackets 194A March Street.
Recommendation, Mr. Mayor.
Moved Councillor Turner, seconded Councillor Miletto. Councillor Nugent.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, this has been a sort of contentious site over a period of time, but I recognise that this is a different development. The development application has gone through a number of stages. At a seven dwelling proposal initially, it's down to 5 now, and that lessened the intensity on it. My preference, as I think some of the people have made submissions, would be for a single level development, but that's not what's before us tonight. We've got a two-storey development before it. But I also note when you look at the designs, that the second story is often sort of set back a bit. It doesn't sort of dominate the whole top of the development. So, and I also note that there was a number of additional conditions that were required and that staff have identified to go into the approval, and that David Scobie, I think our heritage advisor, is basically okay with the development on that basis. So look, it might not be the ideal development for this site. It might not be, it might not be perfect. It might not satisfy everyone, but for me, it's gone a journey. It's gone a long way, and it's a lot better than probably what was proposed before. So, on the basis that the work that has gone and where we've arrived at, I'm happy to support the recommendation.
Councillor Nugent. Councillor Turner.
Just briefly, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Nugent said most of it. As he said, the second floor, the roof line has been assessed into lower the impact, and Niall Street is the only two-story, Niall Street Cafe is the only two close vicinity. There are other new units just down below Niall Street that back onto this. So I think it's quite a good compromise where you've got a developer that has to get a return. On down to 5 units now, and I think it will be quality development.
Councillor Turner. Look, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Show of hands, please. Thank you. 5.6 is development application DA 284/220 brackets 1 4 Carnage Drive.
Been withdrawn.
That's withdrawn. We have to vote to accept the withdrawal. So, all in favour of the withdrawal?
Unanimous.
Thank you. 5.7 is the strategic policy review. Child safe. Move Councillor Nugent. Who's the second? Councillor Munro.
Seconded, Munro.
Yeah. All in favour? Against, thank you. 5.8 is... Sorry?
Say that again, please.
Matter arising.
A matter arising.
Yes.
Just interested as to who are mandatory reporters for council in terms of concerns regarding child safety.
Mr. Maunder.
Anyone with a...
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. So our childcare providers, so the person in charge of the facilities, mandatory reporter, anyone that holds a medical qualification is a mandatory reporter, CEO is a mandatory reporter, as am I in my responsibilities. I can pull a list together though and circulate to councillors.
No, I'm just interested in the positions. That's fine, thank you.
All in favour again, please. Against, thank you. 5.8 is a strategic policy review.
Mr. Mayor.
Move Councillor Henry. Seconded Councillor Duffy. All in favour? Thank you. 5.9, a request for financial assistance, Q3 2020-21. Small donations program.
Seconded, Mr. Mayor.
Move Councillor Munro, I think it was. Seconded Councillor Nugent.
Got a question?
Question, Councillor McRae.
Thanks. On item number 2, I note that the request was for $2,000, but we're proposing to provide a donation of $10,000. I know I've had this question answered, but perhaps it could be explained as to how that's occurred, because it's a bit unusual in our donations process to actually provide more money than the applicant has asked for.
Mr. Redman.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, as part of the process when we're assessing the funding application, we identified a shortfall in some funding for the organisation in terms of commercial equipment and a couple of other items that would extend the program. So we increased the funding through that. There's actually a clause in our general donations policy that allows us to do this when we're dealing with organisations that support the vulnerable, and that's where we got to with the application.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Munro.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I think that's a great outcome when when an organisation comes and asks for very little and actually needs a very lot. for us council, council staff, to see the need and provide. I think it's very important, and I'd like to thank staff very much for that. And further to that, I'd like to thank the United Church for doing this wonderful job that is so important to our community. Thank you, staff.
All in favour?
Time ago, Councillor Hamley moved the and I seconded it.
Microphone,
Our
Councillor
meals
Duffy.
no seems to go to organisations, and I've
There you go.
whether it had because one of the organisations didn't.
Yeah, we'll just look at each other and decide if we know the answer.
I think through you, Mr. Mayor, I think we'll just take that on notice and circulate.
Yeah.
I don't have it before me.
They recall that.
Yeah.
We'll come
Take it
back to
on-
you.
We'll take it on. We'll take it on notice. Thank you. And there's a request for a support for a jazz festival.
Yeah, happy to move it, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Nugent, I will second it. Look, if I may, first of all, I think it's a fantastic idea. You may be aware, quite a few years back, we were successful. Mr. Boland and I went to the Australian Jazz Festival in Lismore and put up request to see if we could get the Jazz Festival here in Orange. We had the Jazz Festival the following year here based in Orange, and certainly showed to me at that time that, gee, the amount of people out there that are into jazz, I think it'd be great if we can get a jazz festival going here. I'm quite sure it'll be quite successful and well received. Councillor Nugent.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with what you just said, Mr. Mayor. Look, this is a couple of years ago, I think it was, we had the Orange Jam, had a music festival that they organised here in Orange. They had it at a number of venues around the city, and you could sort of walk from one venue to the other. And this sounds, what they're proposing here sounds a lot like that. Focus on jazz is fine. I'm not a jazz fan myself, but I know a lot of people are. And also, when you read the report, it talks about other local musicians being able to perform, and they don't have, it's not just exclusively jazz, it's a range of local musicians who will be able to perform. So to give those local musicians an opportunity to perform live as part of a larger festival, I think it's fantastic. It's just a shame that we won't have our first one to 2022.
Councillor, I think Councillor M just beat you, Councillor Leto there. I think it was an age thing then, but...
Yep, that's all good. Yeah, I agree with this. I've been out a few times to the Forbes Jazz Festival. Is this going to be in line with them, or the weekend before, or the weekend up? Because it'd make a bit of a circuit because there's a lot of caravans that get out there, and
we could certainly ask them.
Yeah, because it packs Forbes, and it's the same sort of thing. You walk around from venue to venue, and there's buskers and all that sort of thing. So I'm not telling them how to do it, but it'd be a good idea because then you wouldn't have people coming out twice if they could do a bit of a circuit.
We'll follow up on that. Could you just make a note of that?
Just
Yeah,
doing
thanks,
that now.
Councillor Hamlin. Councillor Maletta.
Mr. Mayor, look, I support the recommendation. I think what this does add is add an operational element to future. That's with investing a lot of money in the CBD, but to me, an extension of that, and it adds to the operational element of future cities, which are being on.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Munro.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I really endorse this. I think it's wonderful. It just brings up the whole art scene when we have these sorts of things happen, and next time it'll be something else arty or something else cultural. I think it's a great idea, and whatever we can do for this sort of scene, this sort of idea, or concept, I think it's important that we really put what we can into it. So yeah, I support it 100%. I can't wait for the night.
Councillor Munro. All in
Thank you.
favour?
We should do a crooners one, Mr. Mayor. You could be Dean Martin.
Oh,
I'll be
jeez.
Frank Sinatra. You can be Bing Crosby.
Ollie.
Five
Like
point-
Ollie.
Big Bopper.
It'd be the
The,
same amount of alcohol drunk, but that'd be about
Event
the same.
application, Ace Attractions, the Orange Fun Fair.
Mr Mayor, point of clarification. Is ACE a local organisation or is it from Sydney?
I don't know.
It's out. It's through you, Mr. Mayor. It's from outside the region.
I'll move it, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Hamling.
Yeah, I think it's
Second,
important.
Councillor Miletto. Councillor Munro.
No, I was just going to pretty
Yeah,
much
Mr. Mayor.
endorse it, Mr Mayor.
I think during I'm happy to endorse this because during the COVID times we had a few of these coming out here and we erred on the side of caution not to let them out here and because we were a bit concerned. I think things have sort of eased up a little bit, so I think to give the families of Orange a bit of a fun time, I suppose this won't hurt to do this. So yeah.
Councillor Hamling. Look, I'll put it all in favour. Against. Duffy. 5.12. Councillor Munro, what's your hand up for?
Oh, no, go on, sorry.
5.12, job creation funding for daycare educators.
It's the recommendation, Mr.
Move Councillor Nugent, second Councillor Whitten. Councillor Munro, your hand again. What for this time?
Oh, no, I just think it's a good idea, Mr Mayor, and I'd like to endorse it. Thank you.
Very enlightening. Thank you very much for that. All in favour?
Councillor McRae's got a question.
McRae,
Look, I just wanted to comment that this is a great initiative in terms of not only building a workforce that can assist with childcare, but also particularly a neglected part of the workforce in terms of restrictions that have been impacting on childcare during COVID. And I know there's been some criticism that the federal budget didn't look after women, but I imagine that many of these family daycare educators may indeed be women, and it's great to see this support from council. It's a really exciting initiative and great work to those involved in developing this. It's really exciting. I look forward to seeing it come to fruition, assuming that we're about to.
all in favour? Thank you. 5.13 is 40 kilometres per hour speed limit within the CBD.
Move the recommendation.
Move Councillor Nugent, second Councillor Turner. Councillor Whitten.
Yeah, look, I'm going to speak against this. I've had a number of people say to me that it's not needed because the busy time in the CBD, you can't get above 40k anyway, right? So it's more about of an evening when there's no one in the CBD. It's more of a going to be trapping people who are going to be going over the 40k when there's no one around. I know we all need to observe the speed limit, but to get from one side of the city to the other, it's going to be painful. And with respect, I understand the sentiment of safety. There's no doubt safety is paramount. But during the busy peak, when the community are in the CBD, get above 40k.
Can't get near it.
So, I don't see the sense in it. I understand the sentiment, but I don't think it fits with Orange CBD.
I just asked a question of Mr. Greener. Can you have going down to Sydney various times what they call variable speed, which says that in 8:30 to 6 o'clock during working days and Saturdays it's 40 kilometres per hour, but outside those hours and others it's 50 kilometres per hour. Can you do that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, you certainly can at school zones and at particular hazard areas, but I haven't ever seen it done at a CBD. So I don't believe it can be extended through to a CBD.
You find out for us? Yeah, it'd be worth checking. Thanks. Thank you, Councillor Taylor.
Thank you.
Mr Mayor, I fully agree with what Councillor said. I've taken note of this over recent weeks. Every time I've been around the CBD, I've just conscious of looking at what speed I'm doing in the flow of the traffic, and I would say 98% of the time I'm not even anywhere near 40 k's. And And that's all right across the day. That's from the morning till the evening. And really, the problems, 40k, putting it to 40k's, 20k's, 80k's, whatever you want. You all know you're not going to stop ratbag element out there that's going to speed up and down Summer Street overnight. It's happened since Moses was a boy, and it will continue, unfortunately. We'll always have those irresponsible people there. And I just think it is another unnecessary speed reduction, and will create confusion. I mean, you take, for instance, Mr Mayor, when you travel, say, to Bathurst and you go to Lucknow. Well, what do? You're in Orange, you're at 50k's, you then go to 80k's, then go to 100k's for a short time, then you go to 60k's, back to 100, then you get Bathurst and you got 60k's. And I asked here, I can remember, I asked in this chamber here 18 months ago, that we ask the RMS or whoever they are now, whatever name they come under, to increase the speed limit from the Dalton Street roundabout out past Leeds Parade, past the showground out to Bunnings at the roundabout there, and they refused. And we have a ridiculous situation there where we've got to crawl along at 50k's. There's no built-up areas, there's no houses in the vicinity, and that was refused. And then we have this as far as 40k's in the CBD. And it is just, as Councillor Whitten, people that are going to get caught are the people who are unwittingly go over that limit, and it'll be revenue raising. And that's all it will be. And I don't believe it will anything at all, because it is physically impossible majority of times to do over 40k's when the CBD is in use.
Thanks, Councillor. I think Councillor Duffy and then Councillor Nugent.
Mr Mayor, I'm going to speak against the recommendation too as well. This, as Councillor Taylor just mentioned, revenue raising, it always raises heads, doesn't it, when you're talking about speed limits? But the actual report answers the questions itself. The average speed is 40.87 kilometres per hour. In the afternoon it says 42. Well, it answers. There's no need for it. It's already there. And it's probably another time it is. But you go to Wagga or go to Bathurst, down there. As a matter of fact, Bathurst to the other side of the track, where you go down alongside the railway track, it's 60 kilometres an hour and various different things. I see 70. No need for it. We've got beautiful wide streets. Let's not cramp them up and let's not make any change to it. It's not broken.
Councillor Nugent was next, then Councillor McRae and then Councillor Maletta.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Look, I'm speaking in favour of the motion. People have said it's very hard to do more than 40k's in the CBD when there's people in the CBD. So I'd say, well, what's the problem in reducing the speed limit to 40k's an hour if exceed it? So, or it's very difficult to exceed it. So I don't see a problem there. This is not about. I mean, this is not about revenue raising. This is about complementary initiative for the OC Future City. It's about making the CBD more walkable and more bicycle friendly. It's about getting people into the CBD and using the CBD and walking through the CBD at all times of the day. So, you know, from 6 o'clock in the morning to 3 o'clock the next morning. So it's about activating the precinct. It's about getting people in and making it an environment in which people feel safe to move out. I do note that the Orange Business Chamber has written a very good letter in support of the proposal. So they support the proposal and they make the very good point in terms of safety, that the risk of a pedestrian death is reduced from 60% to 25% if you go from 50 kilometres an hour down to 40 kilometres an hour. So there's a lot of evidence. You know, people don't like change. I get that, and I had a coffee with someone this morning who said, no, don't reduce the speed limit. But you know, people take time to get used to change, and they will get used to it, and we'll see the benefits of it as we see people coming back into the city, activating it, and being in there and being a part of the community. So I'm happy to support it.
Councillor McRae. Was it Councillor McRae yet, and then Councillor Maletta?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I speak in favour of the motion, and I've got a long list of reasons. But I would put the pedestrian safety above the convenience and the speed at which a driver can get through town. We talked earlier tonight about having the protection of trees in the CBD, and yet we're not willing to consider what impact we have the opportunity to have to protect pedestrians. It sounds like we've got our priorities wrong if we're not willing to put pedestrians first. I think in any circumstances where you have the opportunity to create a safer space for people to use our CBD businesses, to use the amazing resources, and to see the Orange Business Chamber take the time to write such a detailed letter supporting the request to approach Transport for New South Wales is really pleasing. And it shows that they actually care. They've got the skin in the game in terms of wanting to see more pedestrian use, wanting people to slow down, have a look at what's in the windows, have a look at perhaps the empty shops, which are no longer just shelves with for lease signs, but have actually got historic photos. They're supporting this initiative. I think it would be appropriate to take the next step to consider the request. We've seen an accident this week where a vehicle ended up on the footpath. Now, if that vehicle was travelling at 50 kilometres an hour, I have concerns about whether their pedestrians would have been able to jump out of the way in time, or if the intent is to let people go through the CBD as quickly as possible, I wonder whether we really have our priorities right. Kite Street and Byng Street include a number of school zones, and we also have a reduced speed zone in the pedestrian crossing near Anson Street. So we already have some areas which have a lower speed limit to ensure the safety of pedestrians. Including this larger area, I think would be a sensible option, so we don't have speed traps and be accused of revenue raising. Let's make it consistent and a place that's welcoming for pedestrians and cyclists. And finally, about 2 years ago, I was actually involved in an accident on the corner of Summer and Anson Street. And I can tell you that if that driver had been perhaps doing 10 Ks less, I certainly wouldn't have that concern every time I go through that intersection. Now, that was in a vehicle. Now, my concern is not about how quickly drivers can get from A to B, but as a regular, and I must say I regularly use our CBD area at night because it's a safe, well-lit place to walk. It's not about trying to get there as quickly as possible and having a faster speed limit at night time. Let's really think about what we want our CBD to look like. We've put a lot of time, energy and investment into a Future City program for which this is one of the key elements. Encouraging pedestrians, encouraging walkability, encouraging people with wheelie walkers, wheelchairs and prams to feel safe navigating around our CBD. Yeah, we're still going to have some issues with some wonky footpaths. We've still got some issues with parking to resolve. But this is one way that we can really make a stance to encourage walkability, which means people slow down and maybe they're going to spend more in our businesses that are crying out for that economic contribution. And I'll be supporting this motion because I'm listening to the Business Chamber and I'd like to see us progress this initiative to see what Transport for New South Wales say.
Councillor Munro.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll be supporting the recommendation. As you know, a few meetings ago, I opposed it. I tried to think about just the Summer Street reduction of the speed. But on reflection, I feel that as long as it doesn't keep creeping out, I think this is not a bad initiative for the reasons that have been said, rather than go over it all again. As has been said, 40 kilometres is hard to do in that peak time. I've taken notice over the last couple of months in the main street and around about. I really don't think it'll make much difference to reduce the speed. So yeah, I'll support the recommendation, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Turner.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Supporting the motion and again acknowledging the letter from the Chamber. And as Jack Evans said, you know, in reality, from that block to that block, we'll lose a few seconds. And what I see with the advantage being, yes, the chart shows that we're already only doing 42, but we're slowing down those clowns that want, at least we might get them down to 40. always someone that wants to exceed so it's again, it'll be up to Transport New South Wales. They may knock it back as well. Requested it, but we've asked the chamber for a comment. They've come out and supported the 40 kilometre speed limit. I think it's a great idea. It'll make that area more pedestrian friendly. People won't be as worried about a speeding car when they make a decision to walk across the road, maybe between the lights. They think it is safe, and it makes them to stop if they have to in an emergency. I also note that I was down in Manly there a few weeks ago. And Manly are now been reduced to 30. Everyone's accepting that. The cars just go just that little bit slower. They pause, a car parks or from a parking spot. Everything just moves just that little bit smoothly rather than abrupt braking. So I support it. I look forward to the outcome from Transport New.
Councillor Turner, there are no other speakers. I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against?
Got 3 against and rest 4. Yep.
Just clarification, Mr. Smith. Does that mean that we can make representation ourselves as councillors to speak against this? To Transport New South Wales, would it? Traffic New South Wales, whatever they are?
No, it's a motion of council. Resolution of council now, you should know. .14 is single-use plastics.
Happy to move recommendation, Mr. Mayor.
Move Councillor Nugent. Went to
Mr. Mayor.
second to Councillor Hamling.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, I thank the staff for putting this together. There was a notice of motion back in July that council adopted to look at, as outlined, executive summary. The first stage in that process has been prepared, and that's what we have in front of us now. And this is really just an update for the councillors to say let's go ahead and proceed to the next stage. And so I'm happy for that, to endorse that or to support that recommendation that we proceed to the development of a single-use plastics policy.
Can I just ask a question of the staff? I was watching on SBS the other night. Now, they may not be reputable to watch. And it was interesting. There was the supposed biodegradable plastics at the moment not breaking down particularly well and taking a substantial amount of time to break down. Has that been raised at all?
Probably through the chair, of course. It's probably exactly the reason why Coles and Woolworths have moved away from that soft plastic bag to a firmer, more recyclable or reusable bag.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Okay, all in favour? Against, thank you. 5.15 is sustainable energy and energy efficiency.
Move the recommendation.
Move Councillor Whitten, second Councillor Munro. All in favour? 5.16 is the projects report for December. Move Councillor Hamling, seconded Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, again, thank you, staff, for this project update. It's a really useful document. I guess my questions are in relation to the OC Future City project, and had quite a bit of discussion without there actually being an agenda item about the trees in Anson Street. and I'm certainly opposed to their removal. But
hold it. Can I just hold it? All councillors want to get up and make a statement that the trees are staying or not staying.
No, if you like, Mr. Mayor, well, yeah.
Just stick to what we're talking about, Councillor Nugent.
Sure. Well, it's part of the OC Future City project, Mr. Mayor. So, and there's a lot of elements in that project over this year. The first tranche and the second tranche is 2. There's a lot of elements to that. I'd really, I'm asking a question, I suppose. Can we, as councillors, have a workshop or a briefing where we can go through the different stages of the project and where they're up to and what sort of priority we're allocating to the different parts of those projects? Because I think, because it's such a big project, such an important project, I'd like to know more.
Mr. Chair, I could give just a few brief thoughts now, and certainly organise a workshop. Just on Future City, you're right, it's a big project and staff have been working very hard and progressing on a number of fronts. I'd just like to commend them for that and list a few of the things that are going to plan. Obviously, lighting is going to plan. Mr. Ben Brennan's work's just been fantastic and the lighting is just rolling out. We'll have fairy lights and trees soon, Mr. Mayor. So we also have a park solar bollard lighting program that has now started and you'll see it in Elephant Park. The lighting has just been a fantastic project. Matthews Park, where the little trains are, that is a project that will be coming up soon. Playground, bollard lighting, more plantings of trees and various pathways. That project we expect this financial year. Good news during the week, we had $300,000 for public art in the first tranche. We have won another $200,000 in a grant this week. We have $500,000 in public art spending to do this year. And you can see from the historical photographs, that's the sort of stuff that community's really liking.
Change your picture, it'll only cost you $450.
We'll have a process, Council. I'm getting the best to last. I guess because of the Anson tree issue, which was, councillors were keen for that to be one of the first projects, we'll put that on the back burner, and the 3 projects you'll see before you and through the process, including public forums, is McNamara between Summer and Kite, Lords between Summer and Bing out the front here. How am I going? Yep. So they're the projects we'll swing to. We want to get those moving, particularly McNamara, as we work on the back burner on Anson about a redesign idea. So there's plenty going on, but yeah, we'd love to give you a briefing. Anything to add, Mr. Theakston?
I will have a briefing early in the new year.
Yeah, I just think it'd be a good way to start the new year, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for that quick overview now. Appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor, could we just get an update quickly on the distributor to Dairy Creek? How's it progressing? We've had pretty good weather and so forth, so I'm wondering. And what the estimated time frame is?
Yeah, through the chair, and Councillor Whitten's exactly right, around about June next year for completion. I think I reported to the last council meeting as well, but they're planning the section they're working on now to be back open to traffic in mid to late February, and they'll keep progressing down on different sections right through to the highway.
Okay. All in favour? Against? Councillor McRae, you're against?
Late vote. Yeah.
I was just slow, sorry.
You're right, you're right.
I have a matter of urgency. We're just going to go before we go into close.
Matter of urgency.
Urgency, it is. Yeah. It is. Yeah, and I think, being in the spirit of Christmas, I think we really should listen to this. But at the end of the day, as you know, what I do as my employment, there's 2 young kindergarten street students sitting in the front seat of the bus, and they were very extremely worried about. They didn't think that Santa Claus would be coming because of COVID-19. That's what they had in their head, and that's what they were thinking, he wasn't coming. But I'd like our council to support the fact that Santa Claus is an essential traveller, essential service that he is providing, and ask parents to be aware of the 1.5 metres in COVID
I'll second that
spacing.
we allow
So I think
Santa into
I'm happy
Orange,
to
Mr.
move that
Mayor.
way.
Very much. Thanks, Councillor Whitten. So the motion is
I'll
that
second
Orange
it.
allows Santa Claus into Orange.
Endorse his travel across the LLGA.
My word. We have a second, Councillor Whitten.
Councillor Taylor.
All in favour?
To get him a couple of
Unanimous. It was unanimous. It was unanimous.
There might be 40 kilometres an hour in the main street. He needs to take it easy.
Essential service.
As we now move into close, the Chief Executive Officer will advise the Council if any written submissions have been received relating to any item advertised for consideration by a closed meeting of Orange City Council.
Mr. Mayor, an email was passed to me by a councillor, so it wasn't directed to me, from a Ms. Anne Salter about items 6.3 land portfolio review update and Crown land negotiation as to why they were enclosed. And let me just say that I'm satisfied that both of them are enclosed for very good reasons. Land portfolio is council land, selling of it, and obviously, there's a lot of price information in there, and we don't want to give that away. On the Crown land negotiation, this is the next steps in a negotiation process. A lot of legal issues behind that, and I'm very satisfied that that is enclosed tonight. I will say to councillors that this matter will come in open council later in the process.
Thanks for that, Mr. CEO, and I concur with sentiments.
That was 6.5 and 6.
In accordance with the Local Government Act of 1993 and the Local Government General Regulation of 2005, in the opinion of the CEO, the following businesses of a kind as referred to in Section 10A, brackets 2 of the Act, should be dealt with in a confidential session of the council meeting closed to the press and the public. The items are 6.1, submissions, redactions, item 6, and the reason for confidentiality. This item is classified confidential under the provisions of Section 10A, brackets 2, bracket A, personal matters concerning particular individuals other than councillors. 6.2 is for the tender for the construction of amenities and canteen at the Naylor Pavilion expansion. The reason for confidentiality. The item is classified confidential under the provisions of Section 10A, brackets 2, bracket C. Information that would, if disclosed, confer a commercial advantage on a person with whom the council is conducting or proposes to conduct business who supplied it. 6.3, land portfolio review update. Reason for confidentiality. This item is classified confidential under the provisions of Section 10A, brackets 2, bracket C. Information that would, if disclosed, confer a commercial advantage on a person with whom the council is conducting or proposes to conduct business who supplied it. 6.4 is the sale.
Mr. Mayor, sorry. Sorry, Mr. Mayor. I'll stand out of 6.3 if it's all okay. I have no commercial advantage to this at all, but I think because I'm a real estate agent, I think I probably should stand out of that one. So thank you very much. I forgot to bring that to your attention earlier.
Well, I tried to bring it to your attention last council meeting and you jumped on me when I alerted you to the fact that you're a real estate agent. You jumped on me for alerting you. So
That's
may
right.
I ask a question? Are you a real estate agent?
You got the info. It was a bit late now.
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor.
You're a real estate agent. Thank you.
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor.
Probably should have notified staff to not issue with the papers.
Yeah, I did actually.
Minor detail. Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, I'll stand out of that one.
4 is the sale of industrial land at 298 Clergate Road. Reason, are you declaring an interest there? Councillor Munro.
I haven't got anything to do with it at all, Mr. Mayor. I've got no interest in it. I think it's primarily an issue that I should probably, for benefit of council, not have anything to do with that. So I'll pull it. I'll pull out of that. If that's
Reason
okay,
for
Mr.
confidentiality. The item is classified confidential under the provisions of Section 10A, brackets 2, bracket C. Information that would, if disclosed, confer a commercial advantage on a person with whom the council is conducting or proposes to conduct business who supplied it. 6.5 is Crown land negotiations. For reason of confidentiality, this item is classified confidential under provisions of sections 10A, brackets 2, bracket C. Information that would, if disclosed, confer commercial advantage on a person with whom the council is conducting or proposes to conduct business who supplied it. 6.6 is acquisition of property for roundabout. The reason for confidentiality, the item is classified confidential under provisions of section 10A2, bracket C. Information that would, if disclosed, confer a commercial advantage on a person with whom the council is conducting or proposes to conduct business. 6.7 is Jiralang Biodiversity Credits Delegated Authority. Reason for confidentiality, this item is classified confidential under the provisions of section 10A, brackets 2, bracket C. Information that would, if disclosed, confer a commercial advantage on a person with whom the council is conducting or proposes to conduct business who supplied it.